Hello and welcome back. Previously, we've learned about an if statement. So if something happens and if some condition is true, then execute the code that's underneath and indented. Now we're going to look at some extensions to that allow us to do even more complex logic. Like if a person is washing the dishes, then say thank you. Otherwise, if they currently do them, say keep going, you're doing a good job. Otherwise, let's ask them to start doing the dishes. So more complex logic, and we're going to do that with what's called an if, elif, and else statement in Python. So let's get to it. So first of all, let's look at the starter code. I'm just going to run this and see what happens. Whoa, change color. Okay, let's see why. Let's look at the code. So we set the canvas size and we set the fill color to, I think it was that pinky color. And then in the forever loop, we clear the screen by setting it to black with the background command. Then we check if the mouse X, which we learned about, that's the position, the X position of the mouse, if that's greater than 320, then set the fill color to yellow. That's 255, 255, 255. Otherwise, oh no, not otherwise, just if the mouse X is greater than 320, then change the fill color. And then draw the circle in the middle of the screen and then sleep. So that kind of makes sense now, because now if I run this, start, the mouse X, watch what happens when I move my mouse across. As soon as I get greater than 320, it turns yellow. Cool, but now when I come back less, it doesn't switch color. So this is where I can use an else. So what I can do is, in my code here, I can say, if the mouse X is greater than 320, then fill it yellow, but otherwise I can say else, oops, I need to type correctly, else, and then I put a colon, because remember the colon means I'm going to have a block of code underneath and indented. So basically I'm saying, if the mouse X is greater than 320, then fill 255, 255, 0, else, which means that it wasn't greater than 320, then here I can say fill and do it a different color, maybe back to, let's make it a totally new color. So now, if the mouse X is greater than 320, then we execute the fill command. If it's not greater than 320, that's what the else means. Do this next bit, set it to a different color. So now I start, and there we go. If it's less than 320, then it's this else section of it running. So I'm filling it to this purple color. If it's greater than it, then I'm setting it to yellow. So now I've got more options. If this is true, do something else, do something different. And again, you can do more than one line if you want. You can do as many lines as you want, as long as it's underneath and indented. So if the mouse is greater than 320, we do all the lines that are underneath and indented. We've only got one here, but we could have multiple. Else, do everything that's underneath and indented. And again, we've just got one line here. Cool. All right, now we can do more things than this, right? So what I could do is I could say if the mouse is greater than 320, set it to one color. I could do another check here. So let me check if I've stopped my code. Stop. So what I can do, and maybe I'll show you on the whiteboard here. Let me just find my pen. All right, cool. So I can do something like this. I can say if the mouse X is greater than, let's say, 500. Then set the fill color. And let's just choose any color here. But then I can do another check. I can say elif the mouse X is greater than 400, and I put the colon at the end, then do a different fill color. Maybe 0, 255, 0. And then I can have as many of these elifs as I want. So I can say elif mouse X is greater than 300. Then fill, maybe do blue this time. And then I can have a default. I can say else and then fill, and maybe here we do a yellow. And so it lets us ask multiple questions. Now this is actually correct, the way this is written, but I'm going to code it a different way and we can see what the problems are. But what I want you to know about this is that only one of these conditions will get executed. So PyAngelo or Python treats this whole block of code as like a single if, elif, else statement, and only one of the indented blocks of code will get executed, not all of them. And let's dive into that a bit more. So let's say in my code, I start off here and I say if x is greater than 100, then let's fill it to be red. And then I can say elif mouse x is greater than 200, then let's fill it to be green. And then elif mouse x is greater than 300, then we'll fill it to be a blue. Else we'll fill it to be, let's just make it yellow. And then we draw the circle and we sleep and then we repeat. So now what should happen is the mouse is greater than 100, it should set it to red, greater than 200 green, greater than 300 blue. But there's a little problem here. So now, okay, so if it's less than 100, it looks like it works, but as soon as it's greater than 100, it's this red color, but it doesn't change to any of the other colors. And this is because it only executes one of these. That's what I was trying to explain before. So if the mouse x is greater than 100, and if that's true, set it to be a red fill. And then once it's done that, it jumps right to the bottom, or right out of this if statement. Now remember, this whole lines from line 6 all the way to line 13 are considered one statement. So as soon as it finds any matching condition here, it jumps past that statement to line 14. So if the mouse x is greater than 100, then it'll set the fill color to red and then it'll jump to line 14 and won't even check if the mouse is greater than 200. Mouse x is greater than 200. Won't even check it because it's already found a condition that's true. That's how these if and elifs work. If you want to have two different statements, you need two separate if statements. So if I actually want this to work, I need to change the order of it. I need to say if mouse x is greater than, let me stop this so I can execute, so I can update my code. If mouse x is greater than 300, do that check first. Then if it's greater than 200, then if it's greater than 100. Because now it'll check, is it greater than 300? If it is, now I'm going to set it to red when it's greater than 300. Otherwise, if it's not greater than 300, go on and do the next check. Do the else if. So elif is short for else if. So elif mouse x is greater than 200, and then if that's true, it'll do this and jump over and won't do another check. Otherwise, check if it's greater than 100. Otherwise, check it's yellow. So now, otherwise set it to yellow. So now we should have all four. Let's see, 3, 4. Yeah, we've got all four colors. Less than 100, greater than 100, greater than 200, greater than 300. So now our code is working. So it's really important that you understand that when you have an if statement, let me just separate these lines out. Stop my code. Let me separate these lines out. There we go. It's really important to understand that lines 7 to 14 here, these are considered one statement and only one condition is going to get matched. Now, when you're creating an if statement, you must have an if. You must start with an if, so on line 7. Then you don't have to have an elif, but you can have as many elifs as you want, and then you can optionally have one else right at the bottom. The else needs to go at the bottom because it's like the else only happens if none of the other conditions are matched. So it's like a default. So if you don't match anything else, then the else section will run. But you don't have to have elif or else's. You can just have the if statement. but this just gives you that extra power so you can actually implement more complex logic. Awesome. So have a play around with that, see if you can get something similar working, maybe modify it yourself, and there you have the power of if, elif, and else statements in Python. Thanks for watching. See you in the next lesson.